People are freaking out about Fallout. Some are praising the show as one of the best video game adaptations ever made. But many fans think it's already betraying Fallout at its core. So, are they right? As someone who's a huge Fallout fan myself, going into Season 1, I was skeptical. Amazon's track record with franchises I love hasn't exactly inspired confidence.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So, I hit play, fully prepared to be disappointed. But then, something weird happened. A couple episodes in, I found myself thinking, wait, did they actually do it? Does this work?
It just works.
Which led me to a more interesting question than just, is this good? If Fallout is working this well, why are so many fans still angry? And are they freaking out for the right reasons? Here's the first big thing Fallout gets right, and it's something most adaptations struggle with. Unlike something like The Last of Us, Fallout isn't really built around one sacred linear story that fans expect to be recreated beat for beat. Yes, there is a main quest line in each game, different endings, etc., but it's a world first, not a plot first. You're dropped into a wasteland, pointed in a vague direction, and told, good luck. That's important, because the biggest danger when adapting an interactive narrative into a linear one is accidentally destroying what made it work in the first place. And in my opinion, Fallout sort of avoids that. Instead of trying to recreate a specific game, the show tells an original story inside the Fallout universe, which is exactly how Fallout has always been experienced. And I could tell pretty quickly that the creators understood the world they're working with. The set design, the clothing, the music, the creatures. It genuinely feels like you've stepped into that same nuclear wasteland you spent dozens or hundreds of hours wandering through. By getting the world right instead of chasing specific plot points, the show gives itself some freedom. And that decision fixes one of the biggest problems video game adaptations usually run into. But that freedom comes with a risk. Fallout doesn't over-explain itself. It doesn't stop every 5 minutes to tell you what a vault is. It doesn't pause to define caps, factions, or technology. And it definitely doesn't hold your hand. You're just sort of dropped in, which should feel familiar if you've ever played the games. You wake up somewhere strange, you don't fully understand what's going on, and you slowly piece things together by exploring the world. Here's where that becomes really interesting. My wife has never played a Fallout game. And now she's asking me questions about the NCR, Robert House, and how this world even ended up like this. To me, that curiosity is the point. The show doesn't try to be a complete guide to its universe. It acts like a sort of doorway into it. And that's a huge reason of why I feel like the show hits. New viewers aren't being overwhelmed, they're being pulled in. This ties directly into one thing Bethesda has always done well, even when people criticize them for other reasons: environmental storytelling. Bethesda gets a lot of flack for shallow RPG systems, buggy launches,
It just works.
or streamlined player choice, and all of that criticism is fair. But they've always been pretty great at telling stories through the world itself. Terminal entries, abandoned buildings, skeletons posed in oddly specific ways. You're rarely told what happened, you're shown. And sometimes you just figure it out yourself through exploration. The show uses that same kind of philosophy. And that restraint is risky, but it's also why Fallout feels more authentic, I think, especially compared to adaptations that over-explain everything out of fear of losing viewers. That same philosophy shows up in another very intentional choice: practical effects. Fallout wants its world to feel physical. Now, personally, I've always believed practical effects just hit differently. The T-Rex in Jurassic Park, or the creatures in the original Star Wars trilogy, there's something about knowing a thing exists in real space, that it takes up room, that CGI alone still struggles to replicate. And that matters even more for video game adaptations. Games already exist in an animated space. So when you bring those designs into live action, grounding them in something tangible instantly makes the world feel more real. And Season 2 doubles down on this with the death claws. That moment could have gone very wrong. But instead, they leaned heavily into puppeteers, physical rigs, and ILM enhancements, using an approach very similar to Jurassic Park. Yes, there's CGI, there kinda has to be, but choosing when to go practical makes the creatures feel like a part of the environment, not something pasted in afterwards. Now, here's where things get messy. New Vegas. If you're a Fallout fan, you already know the history. Fallout New Vegas is widely considered the best game in the series, and it wasn't made by Bethesda. It was developed by Obsidian. Fast, messy, in about 18 months. And somehow, it became the most beloved entry in the franchise. Since then, it's often felt like New Vegas was quietly avoided. No sequels, no remakes, very little acknowledgement. So when Todd Howard, the face of modern Bethesda Fallout, is heavily involved in the show, many fans assumed it would stick to safer Bethesda-owned territory. Which is why the New Vegas reveal at the end of Season 1 hit so hard. They're actually going to New Vegas. And that decision explains a lot of the current backlash and a lot of the excitement. Because this is where the fandom really starts to split. This isn't a video about Fallout being perfect, or even the definitive Fallout experience for every fan. It's about why this works as one of the strongest video game adaptations we've gotten, even when the choices are controversial. And yeah, I have issues. The NCR feels almost completely wiped out.
If I may, New California Republic may want to drop the word new, because y'all looking dusty as hell.
The Brotherhood of Steel sometimes feels less like ideological tech hoarders and more like they're just blowing shit up for fun. And the Legion, at times, feels simplified in a way that removes some of what made them genuinely unsettling in the games. But zooming out, you start to see the bigger picture. New fans are being pulled in, longtime fans are arguing about canon, and whether you see that as a good thing or a problem, it at least explains why this show feels so big right now. And when I look at it that way, this still feels like the best case scenario for a Fallout adaptation. The world is intact, the tone is right, and the show seems to understand Fallout, even when some individual choices are questionable. That's honestly a trade-off that I'm just willing to take. Because above everything else, Fallout gets the vibe right. Dark humor, retrofuturism, brutal violence, and genuine sincerity all coexist together. That balance is hard. To me, it seems like Jonathan Nolan understood that the goal wasn't to modernize Fallout, but was to translate the experience. The twisted humor, the 1950s optimism smashed into nuclear horror, the absurd violence played straight, it doesn't apologize for what Fallout is. It leans into it. And that's the through line here. The show works because it adapts the experience of playing Fallout, not just the plot. So now, I want to hear from you. Are the fandom criticisms justified? Or is this just the cost of finally getting a Fallout adaptation that actually works? Is this a trade-off you're willing to take? Let me know in the comments, especially if you disagree. And if you want more How It Hits episodes like this, consider liking and subscribing, it really helps us out. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on How It Hits.